This is episode 6, American Hammers TV. We're here with David tonight. David from Boston Hammers, and as always, Lee and me, Tim. So,
hey Tim, hey Lee,
hey David.
What's happening?
Nothing much. Spending a relaxing Sunday evening. Going to travel soon to watch the Newcastle game, so I'm excited about that. Overall, I like the direction the Hammers are going in. We've had some, little hiccups, but overall, I like the direction we've going in compared to the past 3 years or so. So that's refreshing.
It's been frustrating. It has. The different appointments. But what do you think about Pellegrini? You think he's going to last a few years, or?
I actually think he's going to last 3 years. I think the question is he going to get fed up? I think we've seen periods with this ownership where if they're not in the media, they're not making it about them. The team does fairly well. I think they were a lot in the media during the Avram Grant year, and then we got relegated and they kind of played a lower role. We had some good year and a half. We made it back up. Then they started getting more involved with the media again, and the whole thing with Allardyce about whether he should be fired. Did they fire him quick enough? Not quick enough. Also with the new stadium, obviously. And I think ever since the semi-riot at Burnley or whatever, they've kind of taken a step back, and it's been good since then. I think he's a class manager. I would like to hold on to him for as long as possible. But I don't think it's dependent on him. I think it's dependent on if the owners continue to back him. They've backed him for one summer transfer window. So are they going to keep backing him? I think is the issue for me.
I think the guy's, 67, 68 years old? Is that right?
That sounds right, yeah.
So he's not going to be around forever, but I think he'll certainly see out his contract, and hopefully we can keep him around. I would like to keep him around for 3 or 4 seasons so that he can kind of – I think we can move forward with him. I think –
I totally agree. I think he's an excellent manager. I think he's also really good at man management. I think – I'll take one player, Antonio. I think it looked like his career was done. It looked like kind of physically he was on the decline. And he's just completely turned it around under Pellegrini. And I think that's just his influence in motivating that player and getting him back to the player he could be, or that we saw in his first season.
I agree.
So that's just one example.
Well, I think the way he's handled the Arnautovic thing has actually been very skillful, to be honest. That's the sort of thing that could have blown up in our faces in past seasons. Could have derailed the whole season.
Totally agree, yeah.
But he, he stayed calm and he stayed rational. And I think he did what he had to do in that, he kind of pulled Arnautovic back a little bit, said, all right, you're not going to start. You're going to come off the bench. He hates that. But when he came in against Fulham, he was up for it. I mean,
I agree. He was up for it. And I think it sends the message no one's better than the team. But that at the same time, I expect you to be loyal to the team. You're taking a break, but when you come back, you have to remain loyal to us.
We know we need him. We know it's at least for the rest of this season. We know we need him because Chicharito's not going to score all of our goals. I know he sort of scored against Fulham.
Well, he's just a poacher. You know what I mean? He's not scored any of his I think it's 50 Premier League goals from outside the box. We know what he is. He's a poacher, but he needs another striker with him paired. Absolutely. He's not the guy to lead your line.
No, he's not. You're absolutely right. And so I think we need Arnautovic, and I think everybody knows that. Pellegrini knows that, but I think he also knew he couldn't just put him back in starting 11. He couldn't just reward him with a spot after the way he behaved. And I think the way he's managed has been really skillful. And if you looked at the way he played, he didn't really seem all interested coming off the bench against Palace. But when he came in against Fulham, he was up for it. He had a real chance to score himself to set up Antonio's goal there at the end of the match. So I think Pellegrini's the best manager we've had in the time I've been following West Ham. We've said this for a couple of weeks now. And that goes back to, I don't know, Pardew, maybe, Kerbishley. I mean, it runs through a lot of managers. I know it's not safe.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I like him as a manager.
Yeah, so I feel it's the same way you do. I think if ownership will show him the commitment that he needs, and they spent £100 million over the summer, and I know in the Premier League these days that's not an enormous amount of money, but it's more than they've ever spent before. I think if they will continue to show that kind of commitment, we can keep him around. And I think, listen, if we stay healthy, if we don't have a starting 11 of injured players, I see no reason why we can't contend for a Europa League spot next season. I mean, we're not that far away right now.
We're not far away. We have to hope that Wolves and Watford start tanking like a lot of teams do at the end of the season. Yeah. I remember last year Leicester just started tanking. I mean, that game with the Noble goal, they weren't playing 100%. So we got to hope for that.
And we got to hope we have to hope we don't tank, which I don't think.
Yeah, you're also right. We have to hope we don't tank. I don't think we will. Now with a lot of the creative players back, they want to prove something, but
I don't think Pellegrini is going to let that happen. Wolves, unfortunately, look very solid to me. They just look really solid to me. So we'll see. But you get Yarmolenko back, you get Balbuena, a healthy season of Balbuena, a healthy season of Lanzini. Have all these guys who've been injured.
Nasri too. He looks like
absolutely healthy season of Nasri. You give them a whole season, and honestly, if those guys had been in our side the last few months, we'd be at least 6, maybe 9 points better. I mean, I don't think that's outrageous.
Agree.
2 to 3 more games, which puts us right in the thick of Europe. So I think that we're building a side, and if we get rid of some of the dead wood over the summer and bring in another striker, which is what we used to do, I think we can contend. So I think this is the best I felt about West Ham, maybe ever.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I mean, there was the final season to Berlin. It was such a good season, and you thought Payet would stay with us, but that deteriorated pretty quickly.
Well, I never had faith in Slaven Bilic. I'm sorry, I just really didn't. I never liked him that much. I thought he had a lightning in a bottle with Payet, and I thought that would continue as long as Payet stayed. When he left, that was into that. But anyway, I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like Tim wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, as David's our guest, I just want to talk a little bit more about David in the beginning anyway. So how long have you been a Hammers fan? What got you into the Hammers?
I've been a Hammers supporter since 2006. Just what got me into soccer, football, or whatever you want to call it initially is my mom's from Italy. She's not American. And she's from a city called Lecce, and I used to go there during the summers. So it was actually more national soccer I got into when I was younger because that was on when I went there in the summer. And I just really liked how, the entire city shut down. Everyone was watching it and how intense it was. And I when I discovered that you could watch the games in bars in America, I decided to follow the Premier League as well as Serie A. And it just seemed like West Ham had loyal supporters no matter what, whether they were up or they were down. There wasn't some lame story about them, why you should support them. It was just they were real supporters, and that's why I chose West Ham.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like us. I mean, I think, it's not easy to support West Ham. And again, I've said this before, I'm not attracted to winners. I don't understand winners. I understand strugglers, and that's kind of who we are. And so that West Ham, it makes sense to me to support West Ham. Plus, again, it's been 100 and some odd years, but if and when we do win the league, all of us will be able to sit around and say, we were there when we were shit.
Yeah, that's true. Although, I don't know, we're going to need some richer owners if we're ever going to win the league.
And I'm sorry to my mom if she's watching to cuss like that, but it's something they say in England. So anyway, just an expression. But no, the point is, yes, we are going to need a different owners, obviously. It's very unlikely to happen. But if at some point somebody comes in and pulls a Man City or a Chelsea or whatever, which I would have mixed feelings about, by the way. I'm not going to lie. I would have mixed feelings about that. But if we got the money to bring in unlimited players and we won the league, we would all be able to sit around and say, hey, we were never on a bandwagon. We were the real thing. So that has a strong appeal to me.
Plus, what was the first match? They'd be winning because they would have won.
What was the first match you went to?
The first match I actually went to was the year we were in the championship, and it was against Crystal Palace. Zaha was with Crystal Palace before he left and came back, and it was a really boring 0-0 draw. So that was what was the year? I want to say we were 2009 when we were in the championship, 2010, but that was my first game at Upton Park, Bowling Ground.
It was 2011, 2012.
Sorry, 2011, 2012.
And I'll tell you this, and the reason I remember is you were a Boston guy. The reason I remember is because the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011, which was one of my greatest sports moments. Not West Ham, obviously, and of course, West Ham had to ruin it like a month before by going down.
Oh yeah, that was an ugly year.
I just said to my TCU where I went to college, we won the Rose Bowl that January. The Bruins won the Stanley Cup. West Ham is the third not the third, it's actually the first, but West Ham is the other part of the holy trinity of sports that I follow. And of course,
you're a TCU supporter, right?
Yes, yeah, I went to school there. Yeah, the West Ham tanked and went down and had to ruin everything. Had to ruin the Rose Bowl and the Stanley Cup and everything else by being the most important one that went. And it's just, of course, it was always going to be that way. But yeah, 2011.
The first live.
Yeah, that was the first live match I attended.
That was an Allardyce special, a 0-0 Allardyce special. His favorite kind of match.
Yeah, Sam Baldock kind of had a half chance, but it was really boring. We had literally zero chances.
The first live televised show Jesus Christ. The first live match I ever saw West Ham was in that championship season. It was on Fox Sports Plus or something like that. It was against But I thought
Fox Soccer Plus, maybe? I think it was called.
Yeah, exactly. Fox Soccer
Oh, their
Plus.
halftime show and their commentators were terrible, I remember.
Oh, horrible. I had it
horrible.
Yeah. It was gross. Anyway, I guess they must have tied them away at home too. I mean, I'm sorry, away too, because it was the first game I saw on TV without having to stream it on my computer. Was Crystal Palace. It was away though that season, and it was also a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
And Dougie Freedman was the manager of Crystal Palace. And I just thought that was the most shittiest game ever.
So we had similar experiences then.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I think
it was nothing like that season though.
Fox Soccer Plus spent less money on those productions than we spend on this production, I think. So. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So you have your group is 30 miles away from here. You know Tim anyway. You've known Tim for a while, I think.
Yeah.
We're up near. I'm in Chelmsford. He's in Lowell, so we're very close to each other. And you guys are 30 miles and also 1,000,000 miles away. For us with little kids and we're schlepping in the city, it never happens for us. The real irony of this whole show, of course, is that we have all these people on from supporters groups. We talk about what they do in their groups. We encourage people to go join supporters groups, and then we never watch games in a supporters group.
True.
One of the reasons we're doing this is like our contribution.
But April 8th, we are going.
No, we're gonna go. Yeah, we're gonna go. And
I'm gonna hold you to it.
So you guys watch at the Banshee. Now, where is the Banshee again exactly?
It's in Dorchester on Dorchester Avenue. It's really close to the JFK UMass T-stop, just as a general marker. It's probably like a 10-minute walk from JFK UMass T-stop.
It's on Dwight Ave. You got to sound a little more Bostonian.
I'm actually from Arlington, which is a suburb, so I'm not technically from Boston.
I know Arlington. Yeah, no, my father-in-law is the pastor of a church in Arlington. So
Cool.
I know Arlington. So Banshee is down in a place I've been like once in my life. Not the pub, I mean the area of Boston.
Yeah.
So how did you guys choose that pub? And first of all, and secondly, what's the situation there? Are you like exclusive, or do you have other fan groups in there? Is it like Liverpool, Chelsea, somebody else?
Oh yeah. So first of all, it was just chance. My friend Jay was a Liverpool supporter, and he would watch the games there, so I'd go with him. And then I went to watch one West Ham game. Then I said, I really like this. Then I went to watch two. Then I was just there every week. So that became the de facto bar. What I do like about the bar is it's not just a West Ham bar. There's it's the official Celtic supporters bar.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of Chelsea supporters who are pretty insufferable. There's a lot of Man City supporters, but that's only over the last 3 years. There's also some really up and down groups. We're a little up and down, but there's like, you'll see 12 Everton fans one weekend and then never see them for like 3 months. And like same with Crystal Palace fans. But they also show other European League games. So there's always games going on at once and supporters groups there together. So it's an interesting atmosphere. And they have every EPL game on. So that's what
you guys get like a corner with a TV to yourself, or how does it?
It really varies. So Celtic gets every game. So if we're on when Celtic is on, Celtic is going to be upstairs because they are really they make every like cup game on the weekdays too. But if Celtic and Chelsea or Man City aren't on at the same time, we usually get the TV and the sound. So that's the way it works.
So sometimes we're going to have the TV without the sound.
Sometimes TV without the sound, yeah.
But that doesn't, honestly, it doesn't really bother me that much, as most of the commentary is pretty bland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also depends on if you have NBC Sports Gold. I think some people, if they have NBC Sports Gold, then they're not going to come because they can watch the volume, or it's easier than driving 35 minutes to watch the match.
Right. So, and
I listen to it on the radio. I mean, I'd much rather watch it with no sound than listen to it on the radio, but I have no choice.
Yeah.
And you guys, so do you live in Boston now yourself?
I actually live in West Concord, but I still drive in every weekend. Just because if there's someone visiting from England, I have to be there as the representative. So
you missed your West Concord. I had no idea. Mikey, it's well, if anybody who doesn't live in the Boston area has no idea. It's a nice.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a nice part of town. That's cool. So we have no excuse because you are schlepping in from West Concord, which is not much further away. We are not that much further from where we are. So you're going in every day.
So once it started, once I was there starting in like 2008, once I was there every weekend, I could not do it. It would be weird if then I stopped doing it.
Even if
you've been doing it since then?
Yeah, like we formed the official supporter group in 2010, but before we did, it was me and one other guy, Lenny, always going there since 2008.
And how many guys I see your pictures now? You looks like you had 6 or 8 people the last match, which was
Yeah, like I said, it fluctuates. We definitely have a core of like 4 to 6 who will always be there. If it's a holiday, maybe not, but usually 4 to 6. But sometimes people come in from out of town. Sometimes kind of people come every once in a while, all show up at the same time, and it will be like 15 to 20. So it really varies. It's usually anywhere from 6 to 20, I would say.
That's what I noticed. Every picture you guys post, there's always at least a couple new faces that I've never.
Right, that's what we try to do. It's just listed as the site. We try to be pretty active. Paul, who's the other kind of main guy, he's from England. He's really active on Twitter and Facebook, just making sure there's regular posts like every day that people can interact with, just so we can keep getting new faces in. And if they never come back or they just come back every 2 months, that's fine. But then if they decide to keep attending weekly, that would just be a bonus.
Have you been able to recruit people, as in like people who maybe were Premier League fans, but they didn't have a club, or maybe they just sort of like football, but they didn't have a club? I mean, I feel as though there are so few of us in Boston for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I think because Liverpool has a strong presence here, and maybe Tottenham too. But are you been able to sort of pull in some neutrals or some unattached people?
We've talked to them at the bar, and they seem to be having a great time. And they say, "Yeah, I support West Ham now," but then we don't see them again. So
they don't come back.
I don't think so.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to do. Yeah, I think that's hard to do. I always ask everybody this: who do you think is the worst or the most obnoxious American fan base?
Chelsea, without a doubt.
Really? Now, see, all the Chelsea supporters I know are basically 17 or younger. Like my nephew.
At least the ones in the Banshee, they're pretty insufferable. I mean, you're actually friends with 2 or 3 of them, but just as a group, they're pretty insufferable.
How many of them became fans before 2003? I wonder.
I don't know, since I started going in 2008, but I don't think many. That's what kind of makes them insufferable.
Because that was when Abramovich bought the club, right? And
right, and they just act very entitled. Like, I can't believe we're losing. This is impossible.
Well, I could never support a club like that. Yeah. So Chelsea by far, huh?
Yeah.
I say Tottenham, man.
You what?
I think Tottenham the worst. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, it's tough. It's like 50-50 for me.
I can't be around one for more than 5 minutes without just wanting to smash my own face against the wall.
I've always thought Tottenham and Arsenal among the American fans of the games.
Really?
Yeah, Tottenham and Arsenal, yeah. But because the Arsenal people think that, I don't know. I guess they've been humbled a little bit here in the last few years by their standards, but they think they play beautiful football. They think they know more than anybody else about the game. I think this is.
This is what I did notice about the Arsenal supporters. They're relentless talkers during the game. They talk endlessly through the match. It's like they're not even paying attention sometimes. And they also call a lot of the players by the first names, like they know them. They'll be like, and then Alexis is doing this. And what? Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah, but so Chelsea are the worst. How do you get on with the Liverpool people? Because I have never had a problem with it, but there's a lot of them in Boston, and I don't know. There's got to be an obnoxious.
I think what's interesting about this conversation is that the supporters in America, there's a complete vibe than with the supporters in England. Absolutely. For instance, I'm friendly with all the Liverpool supporters in the bar. The owner's a Liverpool supporter, and we're friendly with each other. But then the supporters in England, from what I gather in the forums, really hate Liverpool. And they don't like Liverpool supporters at all. And I think it's from that period of dominance when they were dominant right before Man U. And they view them as kind of always complaining and entitled and stuff like that. So I think that's an interesting contrast, that it's not necessarily the same as it is in America, as kind of like what the supporters groups or the supporters in England think.
I think you're right. I think it's very different because I think West Ham supporters in England still have a reputation for being, a little on the tough side. What's the word I'm looking for?
Gritty, I don't know.
Little thuggish, you know what I mean? Not everybody, but there's definitely, that there's a history. We know that there's a history with hooliganism in West Ham, and that you got guys like Cass Pennant and Bill Gardner, and they're getting older now, and they don't do that stuff anymore. But they built a reputation in the 80s, and everybody knows that, if West Ham play Millwall in a cup tie, it's going to get nasty. So, but I feel as though here in the U.S., we're actually a lot more fun and just fun to be around, as opposed to, I don't think anybody thinks of us as being trouble. I'm certainly not trouble.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think of you as trouble, Lee.
No, I wouldn't be great in a scrap, but no, I think we have a reputation for laughing at ourselves, having fun, having a good time. The people we've talked to here so far on our show have said kind of the same thing, that like when they're in the pub with other supporters, we're taking the piss, as it's in England. We're having a good time. There's a guy who sneaks a bubble machine into the pubs in Columbus.
Yeah.
He's a total legend. We're celebrating like crazy when we score a goal. We're down 5-1 and we manage to score. We're still celebrating like crazy. So it's a different mentality, and I think
it totally is. What I actually think is funny is the mentality of some of the West Ham supporters in England reminds me a little bit of the mentality of Red Sox fans before they won the World Series.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah.
It's kind of like negativity. They almost enjoy the negative side of it.
Yeah.
There's fatalism. I mean, listen to the words to Bubbles.
Yeah, that's fatalism. Yeah.
It's a fatal. It's a like, we're going to try and we're definitely not going to succeed. That's. But I mean, I feel that you're right about the Red Sox, and actually maybe to a little bit lesser extent, younger people, the Bruins before they won the Stanley Cups, a little bit the same way. But the Red Sox in particular, with that 86-year gap, and all the close calls and all the pain, I think there's a strong correlation between West Ham and the Red Sox. And in fact, there are a couple of guys on social media who are West Ham supporters who are Red Sox fans. Like they were asking about, they want to get tickets to the Red Sox-Yankees game that's going to happen in Olympic Stadium next summer or whatever it's going to be. So I think,
I believe it's in June. I'm not positive though.
I think you're right. I think there's a real a kinship there. So for us as Boston fans, we've had so much success in the last 15, 20 years, but we're all old enough to remember. I think we're all old enough to remember when it wasn't like that.
Yep.
Right. And when cheering for any Boston franchise was a lot like cheering for West Ham. So it kind of brings back the old days.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but like you mentioned earlier, Lee, about the the next time or whenever West Ham actually finally wins something or wins a Premier League title or another FA Cup or something, it'll feel a lot like what we had mentioned. I don't know if it was on the air or off the air, Lee, but it'll feel a lot like the 2004 World Series. Really, the championship, like how long the Red Sox went without and all that negativity, and then all of a sudden, that just euphoria the first time they won, or the Patriots in 2001. I mean, that's,
because that also broke a deadlock too. That I think since '85, no team had won a championship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was a long It was a long stretch, and and even in the '80s, it was the Celtics winning championships. And I mean, if we're honest, they're kind of the fourth most popular team in town. Maybe they weren't back then, but they have, generally speaking, they're not as big as the Pats and the Sox and even the Bruins. So. Yeah, it had been a while, So yeah, I feel as though, and again, I mean, it's been how long West Ham have existed since 1895. West Ham's ironworks, so we've waited a long time. But yeah,
that the 2006 FA Cup loss against Liverpool was pretty heartbreaking. The way that happened. So
the 2006 FA Cup loss was a very Red Sox moment in West Ham history, a very pre-2004 Red Sox moment.
Yeah, agreed.
Very similar. And of course, we've won some FA Cups, but not in the time that we've been fans. I was 6 years old in 1980, so I didn't really know what West Ham was. But yeah, I think there's a real kinship between Boston fans of a certain age and West Ham fans. It makes sense. If you're 25 years old and you're a Boston fan, you don't know anything but success. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
No. If you're 25 years old and you're a Boston fan, you're just spoiled.
You're spoiled. Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining, but yeah.
No, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, you have no idea, and I only go back to the early 90s with Boston because I'm not from here originally. But, I go back to like 1993, and even back then it was pretty bad.
So how many other games have you gone to there, David? West Ham games?
Let's see. So if that was 2010, 2011, I've been to one a year, and then 2 times I went 2 years. So maybe it's like 9 games.
That's
so
awesome.
I've been to, I think it was 5 matches at the Upton Park, Berlin, whatever you want to call it. I've been to 4 at the London Stadium. So yeah, strangely enough, I have a season ticket through the Dublin Hammers, which was just complete chance. We were watching the Watford game. I want to say like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and just this one guy, Jerry the Dublin Hammer, came in, and just like we were talking about, he was the embodiment of that kind of negative supporter. He was like, "Oh, fuck Andy Carroll, we're gonna lose." But then he and we did lose, and Andy Carroll messed up. But then he said, "They get off the season ticket wait list. If I get off, will you pay for one of the tickets? And then when you're not using them, the Dublin Hammers will use them. And then if none of us are using them, we'll just sell them on Ticket Trader. So I agreed. So I just have that ticket whenever I want to go.
That's fantastic.
Or if someone else wants to use it and the Dublin Hammers aren't using it.
That's awesome.
You're the first person we've talked to who's been to both the Boleyn and the Olympic Stadium. I went to the Boleyn about 9 years ago, just once. Tim went to the Olympic Stadium last season for 2 games. So you're the first person we've had on here who's been to both. So give us the comparison. I mean, from your perspective, not being a West Ham lifer, you're probably a little more objective than people who grew up going to the Boleyn and they hate the Olympic Stadium. Mm-hmm. What do you like and not like about each experience?
Well, yeah, overall, I would say I don't like the new stadium. The thing that just first struck me about the old stadium was as soon as you got off the tube stop, how live and bustling it was. The vendors on the street, everyone packing in and out of the pubs. It really felt like a charged up atmosphere. You felt excited. Then when you went into the actual ground, didn't look the greatest, but it doesn't have the biggest seats, but the seats were close to the pitch. The supporters were really into it. Overall, there was a good atmosphere, although some people say it had tailed away a little bit to how big it was going to be. But overall, I really liked going to Upton Park, the Boleyn Ground. And then I just remember when we were going to move to London Stadium, I was for it because just of the added revenue we got. And I remember the first thing in my mind I thought was, they have to stay true to that promise of keeping the seats close to the pitch. Once that got out of play, I was like, ooh, this is going to start to go bad, in addition to the other things. Because just to start with, it's an athletics bowl. So it's like, it's shaped like that. So if the seats aren't close to the pitch, it just kind of has a hollow vibe to it. And what I noticed too, they're working on improving this, but you get off the tube stop in Stratford, and then you just have this kind of like lonely walk with nothing around up to the stadium. And it's like, you're not getting amped up, you know what I mean? So they really need to change that. They really need to make cooler bars or just cooler area around the stadium so there's not that lonely walk I talked about. Because I think if there's a big atmosphere outside the stadium, then that will carry into the stadium itself, even though the seats are far away from the pitch. And a lot of people don't like it. I also think, that being said, I mean, once you start winning, the atmosphere gets better, no matter how far the seats are away from the pitch. In last year's Chelsea match, the atmosphere was excellent. If it's a big match and we're playing well and we're winning, the atmosphere will be there. But I think you want the best possible stadium experience. So they just talked about moving the Bobby Moore stand 4 meters closer. I'm obviously totally in favor of that. But then, still all the other seats are far away. So I think what's going to become very important in the future is Everton are building a new stadium, and so are Spurs. And they're going to be fancier and look more like football stadiums. So we're going to get compared to them. So I think that may put pressure on the owners to make even more modifications. Obviously, what I'm really hoping for is for Birmingham. They have an athletic stadium that just be the National Athletic Stadium, and then it isn't used for athletics anymore, and then we rebuild it somehow. But we get a richer owner who rebuilds it.
That's weird feedback. You guys getting weird feedback?
Just for half a second, I got some weird feedback.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, to bring it back to Boston just one more time, in so many ways, the Boleyn to me was like Fenway Park. It was built in the same era. It had the same feel. And just the way you walk into Fenway and you go up Lansdowne. Whatever it's called. It's Causeways by the Garden. Yeah. Causeway's not bad either, for that matter. But you go up Lansdowne Street and you have the bars and you have the vendors. People selling T-shirts. It's baseball, so it sucks, right? It's not like football. It's not as much fun. There's not as much electricity. But you get an old school feel, right? You feel like you could be in a game in the 1930s or the 1950s. The Boleyn felt that way to me too. I went to a night game. It was a weeknight game actually, but it was it was snowing just a little bit. It was cold. It was in February, and the atmosphere was fantastic. There was a buzz. We went to the Boleyn pub and walked to the match, and there was just like electricity in the air, and I just again you get that to some extent in Boston because it's an older city. Is there where do you go drinking before the game at Stratford? Is there a pub nearby?
Usually, this is another cool story, is before I had the season tickets, another person who I met in the pub who was visiting, he said, oh, next time you come over, we should watch a game together. So then we just he bought the tickets in advance for me, so I was able to go to the Liverpool game that way. But they usually drink at the Bow Bells, so I meet with them before at the Bow Bells. I don't know, it's like a 10-minute walk from the stadium. So we usually meet there, drink at the Bow Bells, then go to the stadium. But again, it's like you either take the T or you walk. There's still that little gap where it's not like right on the stadium itself.
Yeah.
First match, I went to Queen's Head.
Queen's Head, is that okay? Because the old Queen's was by the Boleyn, the old Queen's pub.
And then the second game I went to Carpenter's Arms, and that was
that's
bananas.
Yeah. That's where it's crazy in there. I hear.
Yeah, and those are by
you hear it a mile down the street, like the screaming and singing, man. It was just awesome.
I definitely want to go there for one of the matches.
How far away is the new stadium from the Boleyn anyway? Is it?
I walked. I tried.
It's not that far. It's very strange that everyone insists on taking the tube and the closest tube stop and walking. You can get there really easy from a lot of points walking. I remember I was at the Bow Bells and I had misunderstood where I was going to meet the people, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to be so late." And then I walked. It was 10 minutes away, and I made it on time.
How far is it from the old stadium? How far is it from the old Boleyn ground? Is it?
I don't know the distance, but close.
Walkable?
Definitely walkable.
5 minutes to an hour, I think it took me to get there.
Yeah, see, that's so funny because I feel as though people talk about it being, miles away, and it doesn't
Well,
seem.
yeah, it kind of is, but I mean, I don't know. What do you call it? Stratford's a business district. I mean, it's just business after business after business, and then in between there's maybe a pub or two like mixed in, and with West Ham flags hanging and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what makes it tough. And like all the supporters. Sorry, I interrupted you, Tim.
No, it's okay. No, I was just saying there was one direct road. I can't remember the name of the road, but after you got away from the shopping center, there was one direct road that took you all the way to the Boleyn, right where the Bobby Moore statue is.
Oh, yeah. So it's not that far.
Yeah, I'd say like an hour, roughly an hour it took me to walk there from there. I just wanted to try it out because I had nothing to do, see how long it would take me.
I loved East London, and I know people don't live in East London anymore. West Ham supporters have all moved to Essex or wherever.
It was a ghost town.
I mean, Stratford I haven't been to. I don't know. I've been to the new stadium, but the old place, I love the neighborhood around it. I love the Green Street Market that's there by the Queen's Pub. I love the atmosphere. I mean, it's a little grungy, but I like that. I like that. It felt authentic to me. This new place, my impression is that it's more sterile and more like plastic.
No, definitely. And I think they're trying to improve that, but it's a lot.
They are, because there wasn't a lot of construction when I was there last time. No, I'm not at the stadium, but like around the stadium in the district, there was a lot of new businesses being built or rehabbed, and so it was kind of dingy and nasty, man. I mean, it really wasn't cool.
I had the same experience. Yeah, there's just a lot of construction in general going on in London, but that area you're right. It's like they're tearing down old business and bringing up new ones, so it just kind of looks like hollowed out buildings and construction in a lot of the area around it.
So there was no soul to it, really.
No.
Well, you can't build soul. You know what I mean? You can build nice stuff around a stadium, but you can't build authenticity and soul. And but honestly, I mean, didn't we have to move for financial reasons? If we're just totally honest about it,
couldn't they have extended one of the stands? I thought.
I don't know. Maybe.
What way everyone was telling me was that there's like an apartment building that like kept them from doing that. I don't know how true it is.
Behind that stand that they were talking about, there's those towers. There's three like old.
I love those
towers.
Yeah, that's what everyone was talking about. I think, but I'm not sure if that's true. I do agree that like the Premier League is at a really interesting time. It's like. Just like the cliche talk of modern football, that if you want to stay in the Premier League, you have to spend a certain amount of money. The transfer fees are just like going up and up and up and up and up. And it's like $30 million for Yannick Bolasie or 30 million pounds. That's just ridiculous. 30 million used to be like, oh, this is a lot of money.
Massive.
And there's the top 2 or 3. And then there's even that top 6 who are just kind of almost guaranteed those places. We're trying to break in there. But yeah, you have to have rich owners who are going to spend a lot of money to be competitive.
That's the other thing is when people talk about we sold our soul moving to the Olympic Stadium, leaving the Boleyn, and I think we probably did. I think that's true. I'm sure we did. But if you can get a return on your soul, then it's not a bad investment. Point being, you could have a 35,000 seat stadium, a small stadium, and you could be, you could be Watford or Bournemouth or Burnley or Southampton and sort of, stay up in the Premier League most of the time. I don't. I mean, I think if we want to get beyond that, we had to move someplace. And look, let's face it, our owners. I mean, they pulled a classic like East London swindle. I mean, they got this place virtually for free. A huge, world-class stadium, not a great football stadium. I'll grant you that. But I mean, a world-class stadium that's almost brand new that was used for like the most prominent sporting event in the world less than a decade ago. And we didn't have to pay for it.
Well, from what I remember from those 2 games I was there, I would say it would be less the stadium needs fixing, because the environment when I was there for those 2 games, I thought the atmosphere was great in the stadium. I thought the stadium, the game day, everything was just fantastic. Once you actually get there, what needs to change is they picked a shitty spot. Like the neighborhood's horrible.
I agree with the bad spot, but I also agree. The frustration to me is even when there is a loud atmosphere, it's harder to hear because of the shape and they're far away. Like, you're right, there's not a bad atmosphere, but it doesn't like.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is it
doesn't make such a loud noise because the way it's built.
Because I wasn't at the bowling, so I'm not able to really compare. But from what I experienced, I thought it was fantastic.
Well, it's like Stade de France is kind of like that up north of Paris where the French national team plays. It's a big bowl. It's a lot like Olympic Stadium. It's bigger. It's like 80,000 people. It's not like Olympic Stadium, and it's the quietest stadium you can be in, even though it's huge and there's a huge number of fans. And like for the rugby, they get it going. Their football fans are not great, but the French rugby, well, those are a lot of fun. Those guys are a lot of fun. But the sound just goes up out the top. It doesn't come like. Whereas, man, if you go to see PSG at Parc des Princes, I mean, that place is really loud.
Yeah, that's why I like the loud volume. Like I said, I like the rush. That's one of the things I like about going to football matches.
It's the construction of the stadium. I don't think anybody built an Olympic Stadium thinking, let's make the acoustics good for football. You know what I mean?
No,
let's make it millions of people on TV who are going to watch, track and field and stuff like that. But anyway, it's a good, really good comparison to make because we don't know many people who've done both. But so do you guys want to talk about Fulham a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
You want to talk about how, for the first time in my life, I correctly predicted a score of a match of any kind?
No, whoa.
That's true.
Yeah, once every 15 times.
Well, that was because Antonio saved me there at the end. But I'll tell you the impression that I had. We talked with Wayne from Dallas last week on Thursday, and we were talking about how we really preferred Zabaleta over Fredericks. And I got to say, I was wrong about that.
Me too.
Had a rough first half. I mean, got blown past for the goal, and Fredericks was superb. I mean, he was really good. I don't know. What'd you think, David?
Yeah, I thought Zabaleta looked a little bit exposed. I think he's very tactically and technically sound, but I mean, he's getting old. So if there's someone else with pace going against him on his side, he's going to get beat more and more, I think, as he gets older and older. And he could get worn down as we go forward this season. I think Fredericks has a lot of pace. I think he's young. I think he's out of position sometimes. That's the issue with him for me. He'll look really good 80% of the game, and then all of a sudden you'll say, "Whoa, he's totally caught out of position." And that's what the supporters on the Fulham forums were saying as well before he came here. And then I noticed that as well. I think like I said, I enjoy watching us this year. I like the direction we're going in. I think our weaknesses are fullback and then midfield. I think center backs were pretty good. Even with Balbuena injured, Ogbonna wasn't playing that well, but he stepped it up a bit. I think our strikers are healthy. And we have good wingers too. That's fine. I see, other than Declan Rice kind of blocking the midfield, our midfield's a little weak if all the creative players are injured, and our fullbacks are kind of a weakness. And those kind of play off each other and that's why we allow a lot of goals.
Yeah, I like his a lot. I like Balbuena's with it. I don't know. Some alligator with me. Sorry, I don't know. I have no idea why. I do like Diop a lot. He does make some mistakes, but generally speaking, I do like him as a pairing with Balbuena a little better than.
Yeah, I like that pairing a lot.
But I'm with you. I love Zabaleta. I think he's very solid. I think he's a great professional. I think the other guys can learn a lot from him. I do worry, especially when we face clubs with a lot of speed, like Manchester City, for instance, midweek. I don't think he can keep up with that. I think Fredericks is faster, he's younger, got more stamina. And I don't know every time I get a little bit down on Mark Noble, and I love him as a West Ham legend, we all love him, and I never question his effort ever. I do question his ability sometimes, and always have. But every time I get a little bit down on him, he turns into a fantastic performance. So every time, he sort of redeems himself. But I don't know how much longer he's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's going to be telling. I think he puts in a great shift. He puts in a lot of effort. He runs a lot. He's very smart. But I also think, he's not an elite level Premier League midfielder. So it's going to be interesting to see what we do next year. It is tough because he's the captain, and he's the captain so long. I think if the pieces around him are good, then he's fine. Like, I think if we have Declan Rice in the midfield, kind of blocking everything, helping the center backs out or helping other people out, then we have creative people around him like Nasri, Lanzini, Anderson, who can link up with the forwards, then I think it's not such an issue. But I think that then if you have a few injuries, you don't have a good fullback in, you have Snodgrass in instead of Lanzini or someone else, then it becomes an issue. And then against kind of like physical midfields like Watford or Brighton, I think, has a physical midfield, then he doesn't do so good, and our midfield doesn't do so good.
Yeah, I've always been a good English player. I think as you see more Europeans move into the Premier League and more foreign players come into the Premier League, which most clubs are mostly foreign players now anyway, he really looks a little slow, and it doesn't have a great first touch. He doesn't have that ability to sort of do what Nasri does with the little touches, the little taps. Noble's more of a guy who's going to hoof the ball. He's either going to hoof it route one, or he's going to put a long pass across the pitch, which sometimes he does very effectively. But he's not a great like tiki-taka guy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, he makes those like long passes. He'll also like bring it back. He goes backwards a lot, and then look for someone to distribute it too quickly.
Right, which is good and useful, but it's a little old school, I think, to some extent.
Yeah, I agree.
With Felipe Anderson, he's got the dribbling skills, he's got these quick, short passing skills, and you're right about it. And I love Snodgrass too because I think he runs incessantly, but he's a little bit like Noble in the sense that he's a little less creative. And then you see a guy like come in like Nasri, you see somebody come in, like Anderson on the wing, and you see Lanzini, and they have more of that ability to flick and touch, and it's a little faster. And as you said, they're less likely to come back. They're more likely to keep moving forward, look to distribute going forward, whereas Noble is like a Drew Bledsoe, right? He drops back and he stands there for an hour. He throws the ball. And I keep bringing it back to Boston here, but whereas, you take a more creative midfielder is going to be more like what you think of as a running quarterback, where he's moving it forward. And
right, but it could even be it doesn't – if the other creative players around, I think if we have other creative players around him, midfielders and wingers, that's fine. But I think we can even up on him if we get just like a ferocious, like a box to box midfielder. It doesn't have to be someone with like super skill, but it could like N'Golo Kante would be like, we could never get someone like him. But even someone like N'Golo Kante, who just like descends on the ball, is super physical, distributes it fast, and gets it to our other creative players. Yeah, that would be fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be another creative midfielder. I don't think. It just wants to be who's a better in his role, where like he is positioned on the pitch.
And I don't ever mean to be down on Mark Noble because I do love Mark Noble. I do think that we're seeing, we're seeing the beginning and the end of how he fits into this team and how he fits in with Pellegrini. Personally, that's how I feel.
I think probably one of the stories next year is going to be how much do they still rely on him week in and week out to be the starting captain. I think they'll either make the transition next year, if not next year, the year after that. That's my opinion.
I feel the same way. And I think you'll see him, dropping out of the starting 11 as other guys are healthy. And but that's just part of it. He's had his testimonial. He's had a wonderful career. He's a great guy. Everybody loves him. And, he'll when he is done, he'll go be an ambassador.
I just hope it doesn't end up like what they did with Nolan, though.
That was
you guys remember near Nolan's end, it was pretty sad.
Well,
I used to love his chicken dance.
I think Allardyce was stuck on Nolan for some reason. Nolan was Allardyce's kind of player,
because Sam Allardyce is he manages a certain way, and he has his players, and that's that.
And that's that. And he was always going to have Nolan in the starting 11. He was always going to have Nolan in his midfield because he loves guys like that. Even if they start to look a little slow and lack a little bit of skill, which, as you said, Tim, at the end, it was It was sad.
It was, I mean, because he was captain, and just how they treated him near the end, man, it was kind of tough. Because
I thought it was. I didn't enjoy the way the supporters or a section of the supporters treated him at the end.
I thought it was unfair because he put in a lot of good seasons for us. He was a good servant for us, and he did have some big goals. He did do the chicken dance in some critical places.
He scored one more goal for us than he did in his time with Newcastle.
Right, and I hate to see supporters get down on longtime players. You know what I mean? If you bring a guy in and he's terrible, if you have a new signing and he's terrible, and he's just not up for it. You know, if you bring in a Nordtveit, or who I think I saw him for Fulham, didn't I? Wasn't he with?
Yeah, playing center back.
Yeah, Fulham signed him. Yeah,
that's center back, right? If you bring in a Nordtveit or somebody like that, it's obvious that he's not going to be, good enough to be in the side. Fine, abuse it, fine. It's just banter. But you take a guy who puts in, years with West Ham and always puts in effort, is a good leader. I hate to see people get down on those guys, and I think that did happen with Nolan a little bit. And I think that was kind of unfair.
Yeah, I think that's just part of football supporting. Is that unfortunately, no matter what the team is, there's just this type of supporter who, if a player plays good one game and the team wins 3-1, oh, he's the best player ever. Then if they have one bad performance the next game, oh, he's complete shite. He's, get rid of him. There's this section that's up and down, up and down, up and down, and really don't see the whole picture.
It's really incredible to watch on social media, because I know you guys do this too. You read the West Ham Facebook pages and, Twitter and so forth. That, we're 1 minute we are absolutely going to win Champions League next season. The next minute we're headed for League Two,
Yeah, but the frustrating thing is I think they're a minority, but they speak so loudly that that's what you hear.
I absolutely think they're a minority, but yes,
find most of them on Twitter. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but what you said earlier about Antonio, I think is a strong, recommendation of what Pellegrini's done here, because I'm with you. Antonio, remember when he was in the England side, and he was actually like. He looked like a kind of an up-and-coming player, and then he sort of disappeared. But here in the last few weeks, he's looked, really good again. And I think I'm with you. I think a lot of that's down to the manager. I think
Creswell was in the England side too, and Creswell's looking a little bit better. He's slowly.
Creswell has looked improved recently as well.
Creswell's looked much better as well. A guy I've always liked, and he's looked much better as well. He's looked much more solid. I think Pellegrini is still building with West Ham. I don't think it was ever supposed to be something where he came in and won in the first season. We're not Chelsea. We're not.
No, I think that would be unrealistic. I don't think that would be fair to him.
It's not fair to him. We're not Chelsea. We're not Man City. We don't have that kind of club. We can't go out and spend, £500 million on players in a summer. But we brought in some quality, and he's
finishing up the top of the first, the top half, man. I mean, that's a success for his first year.
I'm very happy with that. You have to take everything the board says and sort of cut it by half. Because they talk about, we're going to go to the next level, and we're going to be in Europe and so forth. Listen, David Sullivan, I don't trust that guy as far as I can throw him. I think Gold is a decent guy, but they get a little excited, they get a little ambitious, and then they can't really follow up. So for me, finishing top 10, if we can do that, if we end up doing that, that's a good season. That's a good season, especially after a relegation battle last year. I think it's a very good.
Before the season started, I thought we'd finish 8th. Just not because of all the personnel or anything, but just because of Pellegrini's previous records at other clubs. He had finished very high with Malaga and Villarreal with actually not much financial support. So I kind of trusted him to get the most out of the players.
With the season of Lanzini, with the season of Yarmolenko, with the season of Balbuena, I think, with the season with Nasri, playing more than he has, I think we still could finish 8th. It's not impossible. But I think we'd be there now. I think we'd be looking now at being, a European side if we had those guys healthy. So I'm not upset with how it's turned out. I hope we can stay healthier next season. But I'm at this point, I'm pretty satisfied that I don't.
I'm definitely satisfied with this season as a whole.
I don't have to read the table from the bottom up anymore. You can read the table from the top down, and we're right in the middle. I used to always read the table from the bottom up. So
I also think what's I'm enjoying about it is under Allardyce, the complaints about not playing attractive football, not playing the West Ham way.
Yeah.
We're playing exciting football. We allow a lot of goals, but we usually score more goals, and it's fun to watch. And that's what the supporters wanted, and that's what they're getting.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy about that.
Which brings us to Manchester City on Wednesday. I hope we just go for it. I don't care. I mean, look, we're 10th.
What do we get to lose, man?
We got nothing to lose.
Yeah, there's nothing to lose.
There's nothing to lose. put Arnie and Chicha up front and just throw all of our creative talent on the pitch, and they're going to slice us and dice us no matter what. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got 300 million pounds of players.
Yeah, but I think the problem is Lanzini and Nasri aren't fully match fit. So usually managers don't start fully match fit players because they can't go the whole game. So I think he'll be forced to sub in Lanzini and Nasri.
I think you're right about that, unfortunately. I don't think Lanzini's ready to start yet either. I mean, I would like to see him start, but I'm not sure he's physically ready. But I hope we go for it. And I think Pellegrini might just do that. I mean, look, you can lose to Manchester City 3 or 4-0 and try to park the bus and have them, slice through you anyway. Or you can say, let's go out there and let's attack. Let's see what happens. And you still lose, but it's fun.
He doesn't seem like the type of manager that would park the bus,
Yeah. I think he's going to go for it. I think he's going to. Yeah, I think we were well motivated against Liverpool. We had a good performance then. I think we'll be well motivated against City. I think we'll probably lose, but I actually think it's going to be a close match. I don't see us getting crashed.
I would love to have another role in this title race. I don't really care who wins the title. It doesn't matter to me. It never matters to me because it's never us. But we got the draw with Liverpool, which started them getting a little nervous. And I would love to get a result like that against Man City. Even a draw would be fantastic. Many years ago, I told you I went to TCU many years ago. Back in the 1960s, Texas had the #1 ranked team in the country, and they were undefeated. And TCU went into Austin and beat Texas and ruined the season. And the Texas coach at the time, Darrell Royal, great legendary coach, said TCU's like a bunch of cockroaches. It's not what they can carry off; it's what they fall into and mess up.
Yeah.
and I feel as though West Ham were a little bit like that. Like Tottenham came in a few seasons with that Leicester season. Tottenham came in; they could have gone top. We beat them in a fantastic game. We've done this kind of thing before. We played the spoiler, and now that we're sort of mid-table, we're fairly comfortable. We're really not looking like a relegation battle. Knock on wood, it would take a huge a drop off at this point.
Yeah. How hungry are they going to be though? Manchester City, because Manchester United just drew Liverpool.
Well,
so
they're going to be.
They're only a point. They're only
Liverpool are still a point ahead, so they want to catch them.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to give it everything they have, obviously. But man, I would do a spoiler again. I would just love to. It's just fun to be the club that everybody sort of hates to see on the fixture list. When you're fighting for Europe or fighting for a title, that's like, oh god, now it's West Ham. Because they know that we'll lose to Burnley and we'll lose to Watford and we'll lose to Bournemouth.
And Brighton. Always lose to Brighton and Bournemouth.
But if it's Liverpool in a title race, then we have a chance for a result. If it's Manchester City in a title race, I still think we lose this game by a fairly severe score. But I would, I hope we just go for it. And
my prediction: we'll lose 4-2.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah. I think we'll score. I do. I think we'll score. I think we'll give a lot up on the counter and on the break. I think just listen. I mean, it's not a fair matchup. We're talking about a club that's far beyond the abilities of all but maybe the 4 or 5 biggest clubs in Europe. So
I'd cut it in half and say 2-1. I mean, I think that if we end up having a good defensive game like we did with Liverpool, I think it'll probably be 2-1 because you're not going to stop and shut down that completely. But I could see us at least scoring a goal too. So I'd say 2-1.
I think we'll score. I think I honestly think it's going to be like a 4-1. I hate to say it. I'm sorry. I do. I think we're going to give up the goals. But who knows? Weird things happen on weeknights. Let's remember that. Weird things happen on weeknights.
That's true. True. So the next 4 matches after that are all Saturday matches. We got Newcastle at home, which David will be at. That'll be awesome. Then we got Cardiff away, and then we got Huddersfield and Everton at home.
Yeah,
winnable.
I mean, you've got to be thinking,
Huddersfield are terrible this year.
Huddersfield.
I can't believe it. I mean,
Huddersfield.
I didn't expect them to stay up, but I didn't expect them to be that bad either.
Yeah.
They're pulling a Derby. I think Derby hold the record for the lowest point total in Premier League history. It was like 11 points back in 2000. Well, last time they were in the Premier League, last time they got relegated. I think Huddersfield have 11 now. They've won 2 games. So obviously we're going to lose that game.
No.
Jesus.
I know, you're right. It would be very West Ham to lose that game.
But that's only because we're going to beat Man City on Wednesday night and lose to Huddersfield.
Yeah, I would say the Newcastle game is actually more difficult than it appears. Although still would expect us to win or get a draw. I think Cardiff is winnable. I think Huddersfield is winnable. And Everton, I think Silva is in trouble. So what always seems to happen with West Ham is the manager gets fired, and then the next game is the new manager, and then the team has a good performance with the new manager against West Ham. But we'll see.
The same rule that says that any player who ever plays for us will score against us next time he plays us.
Yeah.
Well, except for Harvard Nordvite, I guess. But winnable. I mean, there's 12 points on the table there. I don't think we'll get all 12. I think that's
no.
The one that scares me the most is the away game. I mean, Cardiff is a tough place to play this season, and also just look at Neil Warnock, man. He's one of the scariest dudes ever.
I know you like him.
I love him. He's my favorite manager, man. I love Neil Warnock.
He's not my favorite manager, but I like that he's a character. He'll always entertain you.
That's what I love about him. Yeah, I don't really care about his manager or the skills, but I'd love to have him manage one of my teams because it would just be fun to watch.
I like English managers. I like English managers with personality.
He's a nut.
We need more guys like Brian Clough, who I realize we get for a long time. But the point is, we need more personalities like Brian Clough and Bobby Robson and guys like that who brought that to English football years ago. So I kind of like him too. Except that he was the one. Was he not manager of Sheffield United when they?
Yes, he was. He'll always have something, against West Ham for that.
25,000 blood money out of us. Because they couldn't stay up. The Good Escape season.
Yeah, I'm glad that's over with.
Tevez, yeah.
Well, the other thing, that's another point is listen, I don't especially like the board. However, this is a relatively stable period for us in terms of ownership. If you go back to when the Icelandic economy crashed, when our
that was just such bad luck. It's like these owners are fairly rich. What could go wrong? And then the Icelandic economy crashed.
Right, we got our Abramovich. Right, we had our Abramovich. We had our Qataris, and then the whole economy collapsed. You couldn't have a more West Ham thing happen than that. An entire country, our billionaires buy us, and they're going to invest in us. It's like, oh, actually, no, because everything you have is gone, and you're just like, you're like Dudley Moore. What's that? Arthur? Was Arthur the Arthur movies in the 80s when he lost all his money? Anyway,
so I got something for Dave. We've talked about this pretty much every episode, and I'm going to probably continue to make it a thing. What do you think in a recent history was the worst outgoing transfer?
Ooh, so someone we sold?
We probably shouldn't have sold.
I know who Tim's going to say, but I won't spoil it. I know what he's going to say.
Oh, my mind is racing right now. The worst outgoing transfer, someone we shouldn't have sold.
That it basically turned out to bite us in the ass for selling, pretty much.
Well, Rio Ferdinand, I would say, but that's a long time ago.
That's what I said too, because they built a stand on the stadium with that money.
My personal. The one that's most personal to me would be James Tompkins, because look at us now. I mean, other than look at our depth at center back. Look at what there was teams that were courting Reed, and we decided to keep Reed over Tompkins, but yet who's been healthy all this time, and look what he's been doing for Crystal Palace. And we could have used that. And he was an academy player of ours. He was one of the guys that definitely would have been a club legend.
I think he's from the area. He's from the East End, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
that's right. I hate to lose him.
So that hurts me the most, personally. But I would have to agree. I mean, in recent history, I think Rio would be the dumbest thing that we did. But I don't know what the close finances were.
He was a once a generation player. So.
And they took the money and they didn't buy other players.
No, right.
The one that broke my heart the most when he left, and obviously it was going to happen, but I hated when Scott Parker left, and I hated when he went to Tottenham because I really loved Scott Parker. I don't care what anybody says. I know a lot of people hated him because he went to Tottenham.
Like who?
Scott Parker.
Oh no, yeah, Scott Parker is one of my favorite West Ham players since
I loved him. I saw him play live at the Boatland. I thought the man put out every ounce of effort he had for us every time he played. He's a fantastic player, and I knew he was going to leave after the relegation. I know he played for us after.
Yeah, people forget he actually. The year we got relegated, we beat Liverpool towards the end of the season. We looked pretty good. Then Scott Parker got an injury. I think it was his ankle or something. And then as soon as he got injured, that's when we started just being absolutely terrible. I mean, we weren't good, don't get me wrong, before the injury, but I think that played a role in us getting
No, but
lucky.
I think if you want to look at two reasons we went down, the number one was Evan Grant, but number two was Scott Parker got injured at the end of the season. And he missed like the last 4 or 5 games, and then we just
it was also Demba Ba played really well too.
Yes, he did.
It's sad to lose him too. Although he just had that vicious leg injury a few years afterward, but he was a good player.
But I knew we were going to lose Scott Parker. I wasn't upset. I just hated it because it was heartbreaker to me because that guy was one of my great sort of like West Ham heroes from the formative years, really years of watching West Ham. So, but yeah, I would I hate losing academy guys, and I hate losing local guys, and so I know how you feel,
especially as talented as him. I mean, I know we get £12.5 million for him, but I mean. Just look at if we had him, if we're let Reed go instead. I mean, are we any worse off? I mean, would we? Would we have been worse off letting Reed go?
No,
what has he actually played since then?
And then also, I forget, did his being sold, was that after Antonio was played at right back under Slaven Bilic? Because he can also play right back. I forget.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he was.
So I don't know if that
he was actually filling in a right back.
Then we could have played him at right back.
I think
he plays right back sometimes.
And they were saying that he actually. I was looking back at videos on this and interviews and stuff like that, and he was saying that he really made the decision to say, you know what, good, I'll go to Crystal Palace. It's fine because of the lack of playing time and also playing out of position, which Slaven Bilic was famous for playing players out of a position.
Yep.
Bilic was a guy. I loved his enthusiasm. I did not think he was a good manager. I thought he caught like the model again with Payet, and that was once Payet was gone, he had no idea what he was doing. Unfortunately, because he was a good dude, but that was about it. But yeah, this feels like a period of relative stability for us, and that's nice for a change.
It's nice.
And here's the other thing, Dave. I mean, sorry to cut you off, man, but
keep
we
on.
talked about this a lot. If Reed ever comes back, I mean, do you think he's ever going to be the same?
No,
I don't.
No,
yeah. I mean, that's
I think it's also I think he still has a lot of years under the contract, but I think they'll just sell him and pay part of his wages or something. I don't think it's an issue. I don't think we're going to go with. I don't think he's going to get much playing time going forward, barring injuries to other center backs. So
I think I
don't think it's an issue either way.
As great as he was for us for a while, and he scored the last goal to Berlin and all that, I think we've moved beyond him. I think we're maybe a better team than we were when he was.
And his injury record is actually really poor. If you look at his actual injury record, it's almost as bad as Andy Carroll's. There were, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years or 2 or 3 years where he was relatively healthy, but outside those years when he was really young and just coming into our team, and he did very good for us, he actually has a very extensive injury record.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
So we're gonna go before too long. I think we'll have to go to work tomorrow. Well, I don't know.
We're gonna both wrap it up, but go ahead.
Yeah.
So tell us again. You guys give us the address of the Banshee and tell us where it is, and hopefully some other people in Boston are watching, and they'll head down there.
I know it's on Dorchester Avenue. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I can look it up right now if you need.
It's on Duarte Ave in Boston.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't do it very good.
I'm pretty sure if you pop the Banshee in the Dorchester.
Yeah, just look up the Banshee Pub Dorchester online. Yeah, that's where we're all meeting up. We always have a good time. So
it's the only
you guys usually meet up before match.
Wanted to come down. Say it again.
Do you guys you have like a specific meet time, or you just watch the guys just pop in and say?
We just watch the guys pop in. I usually try to be there like 15 minutes before, half an hour before. But there's usually people there half an hour to 15 minutes before, I would say.
All right, so our plan right now is to go on April 8th, which again,
it's on the air, so we got to do it.
Yeah, I'm only it's on the air.
We're super high tech. We're gonna bring our phones, with our cameras, and we're gonna record some stuff, and we're gonna hopefully neither one of us knows how to edit anything. So,
no, we'll do some live post match stuff.
That'd be cool. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
We're gonna do some live stuff from the pub, right? We're gonna do some live stuff from the pub, some live pregame, some live post match. And then hopefully we can get some impressions of what it's like to go there, be around everybody, be in the atmosphere. We'll just take some shots, and then we can figure out how to splice those together and pop them up online, and we'll do an episode, a live, sort of like experience episode. So
I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I hope you enjoyed your time with us. We
yeah,
enjoyed your
glad.
time, brother. I'm glad to finally have you on.
This
And
was really great meeting you and having you on. And we're going to get down there on the 8th, and we're going to try to do more Banshee stuff in general. I always say this: it's hard. I have 2 little kids, and it's hard to get out of the house at all on my own. So, plus I coach a fun soccer team, and those games are almost always Saturdays at 10 in the spring and the fall. But you're very close to us. You're not far away, and we should all, there aren't many West Ham here in Boston, so we should all be together.
Yeah. Great talking with you guys. I'm looking forward to April. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.
David.
See you next week.
Yep. See ya.